All right, welcome back to the stream. Today we are going to be talking about workplace hauntings. If you've ever worked at a place where you felt like something strange has happened before, that's what we're going to talk about. I'm PhantomGB. I am a VTuber. I primarily am a gamer, but I am very fascinated with the paranormal and have done my own little bit of investigations. And I'm going to pass it over to the other two so they can introduce themselves.
Thank you, Phantom. My name is Laura, and I have been in the paranormal for over 20 years, and pretty much my whole life. I've lived in a haunted house majority of my life, and I've seen and heard and felt many, many things. So go ahead and take it away, Chris.
Yeah, I'm Chris, and all the fans of the lifting know I do sessions, remove attachments, and do overall trench working, clearing people's homes and energy fields. So go right ahead, Phantom. Start it off.
All right. So, like the title implied, we're going to talk about workplace hauntings. I'm going to tell a little bit about. I actually got two stories to tell from personal experiences. One's from me, and then one's actually from my wife. The first experience I had, where I was working at a place that had some strange things going on, was as a lot of people, a lot of my fans know, I used to work in electronics recycling, where we would get a lot of old electronics like laptops, tablets, things like that, and we'd fix them. So we were in this huge warehouse just with shelves of stacks and stacks of laptops and things like that. So what I would do is I would fix those laptops so we could resell them on eBay or wholesale them, something like that. And I remember one time I was actually going, so in the back, there was like this, like, we always called it the dark corner because that's where we had a lot of laptops stacked up. And so, like, there was no light in that portion of the warehouse at all. So a lot of us would go back there and try to grab as much stuff as we can to bring back to our desk as we could, because we didn't want to stand in that area for as long as possible, because we always just felt like something was weird. And I remember one time I went back there to grab a bunch of laptops to take back, and I swear I saw a shadow walk between the shelves, and they were tall, so I thought they were like this guy Jeff that I knew, that I used to work with, because he was a pretty tall guy. I was like, it was weird because he was sitting at his desk when I walked back there, and I'm like, Jeff, how did you get back here? I didn't hear anything, and I walk around the corner, no one was there. And so I talked to
That's weird.
I talked to the other guys and told them what I saw, and Jeff was like, "Oh yeah, that's Charlie." And I'm like, they're like, that's what they call them. That's what they nicknamed them. They're like, yeah, we're always seeing someone walking around back there that there's no one there. One time I even, like, to kind of test this whole thing, I like balanced a broom back there, so it's kind of standing, but it wasn't leaning against anything. I wanted to see how long it would stand, and it flew at one of the shelves. Like,
Did
it
they
didn't.
ever like look up the history or anything, or why this character, person, whatever?
No one really seemed to know. It was just kind of always that way. So I don't know what the place was prior to it being, I know it was a previous business prior to that, but I don't know what it was. Um, I think when I talked to, if I remember correctly, when I talked to Jeff, he said he pretty sure that at one point they were like a lumber mill or something like that, because we had a welding place next to it, and he believes there might have been an accident that had happened.
Hmm.
That'll do it. Otherwise, I was thinking maybe like an attachment to one of the electronic equipment. I don't know. That's weird.
That could be. That could very well be. The other story that I have, and this one's a lot more interesting than mine. So my wife used to be a CNA. She worked at a place called South Lake Village in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's, in a retirement home. And she said that they had a resident at one point, like, on the clock, same time every day, would always page them because she always needed something. And finally the day came that the lady passed away, and for a week solid, their pagers were still going off for that room at that time when no one was in that room.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's good. That's much more interesting when I had. But I'm like, finally, I guess after a week it died down. But I think, from my understanding, is they moved someone else into that room, and that's when it stopped.
Did
Mhm.
has she ever talked about like did when someone passed away, did they do something specifically in those rooms? Like I've heard of nurses who if there's a window, they will always open the window. And it's just, I mean, it's not something they necessarily believe, but it's just something that they were told to do if someone passes away.
She's never really told me anything about that. I'd have to
Mm.
ask her, but I know that each resident had their own little quirks, their own little habits. And I know, like, some of them were needy, so they'd page a lot. I think
Wow.
so. That I'll have to. I'm sure she's got other stories, but that's the one that she remembers the most. Is that for a week straight they were constantly getting calls on that pager, and there's no way that could have been a glitch.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mhm.
I love that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Joanna, she works in hospice, and back in Arizona, she did the same thing. And there was a resident that she knew was possessed. This goes the other direction,
Hmm.
where you could clearly tell that something was possessing this person. And I did energy work over there. She brought me in there when nobody else was there to kind of look around. And yes, this person was definitely had some demonic crap going on, and the activity in the building just revved up. I mean, it was that building that she was in was just haunted central. And I'm not going to say the business name, but it was in Arizona, and it was pretty bad. Things would follow her home all the time. Ghosts would follow her home constantly from that place. And eventually, I found a way to quell it, but it got ugly for a little while. And there was just constant activity that even the staunchest skeptic that was on that crew was seeing. Like security there would see people coming and going when nobody was actually there, or a particular resident saw a particular resident walking around, and that person had actually passed away. Like maybe that it was earlier that night, but they had just no certain members of the crew hadn't caught it yet, and so they saw the ghosts wandering around in that particular building. At her current work, nothing has really occurred, but the her last one in Arizona, it was pretty active. And given the job profession, it's usually that kind of goes without saying that something is going to occur. But I had one when we worked. I worked at the old Valentino's building in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the old one that's been torn down now.
Now
But
explain what Valentino's is because not everyone is from here or from the Midwest.
okay, everybody that's in Lincoln, Nebraska, a local knows about Valentino's Pizza Place. It's an older place. I believe it was from the '60s, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think they
uh,
were actually open before that, but I could be wrong.
yeah, but I worked in the original building, the very first one ever, and it was the older building that had basically all like asbestos in the flooring, the old style building,
Yeah.
and
1957.
1957. I thought
Oh,
it was close to the '60s. Okay, but
nice.
what ended up happening was I used to work until like 11:30, sometimes almost midnight at times, and that's when they would close that would close about 10:30, something like that. And I went down. There was a party room on the basement floor, and I would go down there. I went down there because there was something wrong with the bathroom upstairs, so I used the one downstairs.
That
And
basement one was creepy. Okay, continue.
yeah, and went down there. And bear in mind, there was also no one on the upper floor either. The manager himself was all the way on the highest floor, and he was doing something with the money or something like that. He was putting it in the safe or something before he checked me out. I was on the bottom floor in the creepy area. There was the cage where all the stored equipment and everything was, and the party room was over here, and there was only one light on where it was the bathroom, and everything else was pitch black. And like basically a phasmophobia level in the making right here. But went down there, and I could hear above me, like as if the dining room was full. like people
Oh,
talking.
wow.
And I'm thinking, okay, what the hell did somebody turn on a radio or something like that? But you could tell it was pretty charged. And downstairs, you could hear things in the cage moving around, things falling, stuff like that. And in the room I was in with all the tables in it that were set up for the next day's event they were going to have, I could hear cups falling, things of that nature in the corner. Went into the bathroom and I could still hear things going on out there in the party room, which was pitch black, as if there was a bunch of people in it. And came out, went upstairs, went up in the main room and the main floor, nothing. And the manager was still up in the office, and he had just come down, and he thought there were people on the sales floor, or on the main floor. And I said I thought there were people on the main floor and in the party room. And he goes, "I'm just going to check you out right now, and you can just go home." I'm like, okay. Yeah. But I told him about what I did at the time with paranormal and everything. He goes, "No, I believe you." He goes, "I know exactly what you're talking about. This building's haunted as crap. I know it. Other people have reported this exact same thing." He goes, "I had just never heard it." And he goes, "I'm going to check you out. I'm heading home. I'll lock up. Goodbye." And that was it. And he goes, "I'm not the manager tomorrow night. I'm not coming. I don't have to come in. The other guy can handle this." But
So
but
he was basically, "Fuck this shit, I'm out."
Yeah, I'm out. Yeah, and he came back the following week. He was cool again, but then he got the night shift, and he just went around up until about 11:30, going like that. But nothing ended up taking place when we were there again. I even went downstairs and to check it out again, and it didn't happen a second time. But I thought that was actually pretty interesting. And I also went to, if people are familiar with Milford College out in Milford, Nebraska, I went there for quite some time around, God, what year was it? I believe it was 2005-ish, somewhere in there. And that is a welding college or a trade college that's out there. They teach welding and different engineering skills, things of that nature. Went out there, and I stayed in the old area. If people go out there, they would know there is this one building that looks like a Greek temple. Everything else looks like a normal brick building. One in smack dab in the center looks like a Greek temple with the pillars and everything out there. That I came to find out. Actually, I'll do that last. I stayed in a dorm down in the basement of that building, and there's no doors on the dorms. It was just a slide curtain. And it was just like a walk-in closet-sized room with like a little desk, a bed, all of that. And some of the students went down there, and some were in the floor above. Well, I was there late into the season when all of the students were gone from there, except for one maintenance guy that was like in the main building, and a security guard. Well, nobody else around, because I had to stay an extra day after the school season was done before I got picked up. And that night, me doing all the work that I do, I'm pretty cool with a lot of things. I was literally the only person in that building sleeping there. I could not wait till the sun came up, because I was sitting there hearing people above me, like at the Valentinas, and hearing things happening on the floor I was in, and hearing basically the start to every horror movie, like creepy sounds, things of that nature. And to go to the bathroom in there, you had to use a key to open and close the door. And since I was the only one there, I kept it open. And I just put a door stop in there, and that thing something kept slamming it. And there was a really hard hockey puck rubber stopper that was in there that wouldn't budge. I could have pulled on that thing, and it was one of those really large ones, and it didn't budge, but something kept slamming the door. I'm thinking, okay, maybe the hydraulic pulled it shut. Nope. I mean, there's voices in there. I heard screeching, all the banging on the walls, all this other stuff. About maybe 5:30 in the morning, I pack up the stuff. I figure, okay, I'm just going to wait outside for maybe an hour or so before I get picked up. And I came to find out when I got home, we did research. That building was used as not only a makeshift hospital, but the floor I was on was the morgue. And
wow.
Before it was a school, before they used it as part of the school, it was a small hospital. And so they made it kind of like a temple look because it was supposed to like represent healing and all of that. But a lot of the newer generation didn't know that was a hospital. I believe it was sometime in the 50s or 60s. But I thought that was actually quite interesting. But oh yeah, it was pretty creepy down in that building. If you're the only person in almost the entire complex, there was probably 3 people in that entire complex. The security guy, the maintenance guy, and me. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
It
wild.
was creepy. Yeah.
I remember going to the original Valentino's as a young child, and the one thing I always remember I was drawn to the basement for some weird reason, but also I absolutely hated using the restrooms that were upstairs. Don't know why, but I absolutely hated it. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there was the employee one which was broken at one point. I couldn't use the one in the main room there because they had just cleaned it and they didn't want anybody else messing with it. And they figured, nobody uses the lower one. We'll just have the maintenance person do something in the morning. So I went and used that one, and that's when all the paranormal activity was going on. But yeah, that building was pretty creepy. They tore it down. It's a parking lot now, so people go to try to look for it. The lot used to be across the street. The parking lot used to be across the street from the Valentinos and a little lot attached to it. Now it's flipped. You have the Valentinos in a bigger building and a lot.
Are you referring to the one that's on Holdridge, I believe it is?
Yeah,
that would be the original, yeah.
Yeah, the original. Yeah, the original building's gone. The new one is across the street. It's still on Holdridge, but across the street from where on the cross street there, from the original building. But the original building, oh yeah, it had a lot of architectural problems, a lot of potential problems. There had asbestos in the flooring in the room, the bottom of the party room, and eventually they just caught on and they tore it down. But it wasn't registered as a historical landmark or anything. But they put the new one up right across the street. It's right across the street from the other way on Holdridge from the university. So,
right.
University. So, yeah, that was a smart place to put it. But yeah, I would be willing to bet if anybody that's working there now can get back to us in the comments, I'd be willing to bet there's still activity over there since it's so close to the original location.
Probably, definitely. Real quick, before we pass it over to Laura, as you were talking, I was just thinking, do you remember, this might kind of count even though we didn't work there, but we teachers did, Lincoln High. I don't know, do you remember the rumors about like the top floor being haunted at all? Do you remember that ever being talked about? Because I remember one time, I know everyone had already left to go home, but a bunch of us stayed. Some people you would remember, like Kevin, for example. I remember we went up there. It was just and like what was weird about it was we went all the way up to that floor. There's like maybe 3 or 4 classrooms up there. It was barely used, and it was quieter than most floors and cold.
Oh yeah, wasn't that the mezzanine?
Yeah, I think it was the mezzanine area, but like we heard noise. We heard like things being like we would hear doors like slamming and things kind of being thrown around, but there was nobody else up there. And I remember it was dark because they shut off all the lights up there. But yeah, there's something about the top floor at Lincoln High that's a little off.
I went up there when it was all the lights were off, but there was a little bit of sun coming through there was a little window there. That's creepy when it's like a Twilight-ish almost that was coming through there. That's again, that's a phasmophobia level in the making right there. But hint to the creators of the game. But yeah, I was up there too. It was pretty creepy from what I remember.
But let's hear it from you, Laura. What do you got?
So I have several actually. One of the first places that I can remember where I had encounters with something that I would consider a spirit is I was working at a fairly good-sized Walmart, and I remember kind of joking with my coworkers that, the Walmart was haunted, and they knew I was really into the paranormal, and somebody had told me that, it used to be a raceway, and that a car had veered off and had killed an old lady and a child. But apparently the child actually had like made it through or something. Well, I didn't know the history of the place or the area. And then someone else tried telling me that it originally was like a swamp / garbage area. I don't know. I don't know. Phantom, you and we looked up kind of what was there prior, and there was like kind of a main gravel road that was there. So, the story of a car, veering off and killing someone could be true. It just might, the story behind how it happened might not exactly be true.
Yeah, I would say, because I grew up right across the street from that area back in the 80s and 90s. And before that Walmart was put in, there was nothing but wilderness over there.
Yeah. So I worked with, first of all, this first story that I'm going to tell you about the place. Actually isn't my story. It is was one of my coworkers. She was an older lady, who was probably late 30s at the time. I was still in my early 20s, and she had already worked there for, oh gosh, at least 12 years, if not longer. And she typically worked a late night shift time because she had children, and that was when her husband could be home to watch the kids and then she could go to work. Okay. And this is back in the day when Walmart was 24/7. So she worked, we're talking like she would come into work at like 9 o'clock at night and then work, through the night pretty much. And I, funny enough, actually then would come in at like 6 or 7 in the morning to basically take over. This is how we started talking about this. And she said there was one night, and it was like 11 or midnight, something along those lines. There usually was never really any customers in the store. The main job of a lot of the people working there was to fill in the supplies on the shelves, and we both worked in the craft section, okay, at the time. And she also would work in the baby section, which was just across from it. And she said that she was working out of a shopping cart, putting stuff away, and all of a sudden this older lady asked her, "Hey, can you cut me some fabric?" And she said, "Sure." So she went over there, and she's, like I said, it's a dead night, so she talks to whoever comes in. She was very friendly, and she asked the lady, "What kind of craft are you planning on making?" And she couldn't remember what the lady had mentioned, but just that, the lady was trying to finish up some kind of craft or something, and was trying to decide how much fabric she needed. And the old lady was still trying to figure it out. And this gal said, well, think about it. I'll be here. I'll be in this area. You can just let me know when you're ready. She said, "Oh, okay." Well, then I guess she said that the lady came back saying that she needed some help in the electronics, which was on the other side of the craft department. And now this coworker that I worked with, she sometimes would cover breaks over there, so she was familiar enough. And she said, "Oh, let me go grab the keys and I'll help you with whatever you need over there." And she went over there, I guess, and she once again, the lady kind of acted like she didn't really know what she was looking for or needing, and they just kind of chit-chatted. And all of a sudden, another worker who was walking, so they would put pallets of supplies in the center of the aisles. And so she was walking between the pallets and happened to see this coworker and said, "Oh, hey, hi." And this coworker said, "I'll be with minute to this other friend of hers. Oh, let me finish helping this customer. And this gal kind of gave her a weird look, but didn't, whatever, didn't say much. And I guess whatever conversation she had with this elderly
Oh, yep. She glitched out again. We'll let her catch back up. There we go.
hear me again? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's all good.
Basically, he, this other coworker, kind of was like, "Oh, okay, like go ahead and help whatever customer." And the coworker, uh, finished her little chat with this elderly lady who was very nice. She said there was nothing distinctive about this elderly lady. She was an elderly, white, short, cute little grandma, you know. The only thing she remembered though was that she never actually cut her any fabric and she never got her any electronic device. So she just thought, well, maybe the lady decided she didn't need that. It's late at night. Maybe she was just wasting some time, trying to get tired or something. So she didn't think anything of it. She went over and started chatting with her coworker, and her coworker said, "You said you were helping someone. Who were you helping? 'Cause I didn't see anyone." And this lady goes, "What are you talking about? The old lady was standing right next to me. You couldn't see her?" And she said, "No, there was no one standing next to you." She goes, "I thought maybe the lady had walked away and that's why you were waiting." She goes, "No, the lady was standing right next to me."
So did it
And
like look like you were talking to nobody to them?
it wasn't me. That was the coworker that
Oh,
was talking to the lady. This is all secondhand. This is all from the coworker. So then fast forward about maybe a month or two. I like to come into work about an hour early. I'm kind of weird like that. And it was just to kind of relax before I had to go back out or go onto the floor basically and start my day. And this particular day, I had just moved. And so I wanted to look at plants, house plants, because I was like, I want a house plant. And it was springtime. It was about this time, this season. And so March, April, whatever. And I thought, yeah, I want some house plants. So I decided to go out onto the floor. And now keep in mind, this is like 5 o'clock in the morning. So there's no one in the Walmart, really. I mean, there maybe is one or two people, but they're all getting food. They're not usually walking around, home good stuff. And I go over to the garden center area, and they had a display where they had hanging plants above, and then they had shelves with like little plants. And I just happened to be looking at these one plants that I think they were cactuses or something. And I heard something and I looked up, and one of the hanging plants, there was a black shadow of a person doing this and looking at me. I couldn't, and I know I've talked about this before on the show, but I couldn't see looking at it, I could tell it was the shape of a person. It didn't have hair. I couldn't tell if it had a nose, eyes, face, mouth, whatever. I just knew it looked like human shape. And all of a sudden, it was almost like I could tell it realized, oh, it sees me. It let go of the hanging plant, and the hanging plant is swinging. And I was like, oh, that's got to be my friend. My friend must be working early. Oh, she's got to be making fun of me. So I slowly creep around, and as I'm creeping around, I realize my shoes are squeaking really bad on the floor. And I'm like, if that was my friend, her shoes would have been squeaking too, and I didn't hear anything. And then I kind of freaked myself out thinking that, because I'm like, what did I just see? And I went around, and then I went down the aisles, and there was nobody. Absolutely nobody. So that was my first encounter. And then I ended up moving to working in the back. And it was right around the time where we have to count all of the products in the whole store, okay? And including all the ones that are stored in the back, any extra things. So myself and another lady, that was another friend of mine there, we got nominated to going through all these random boxes for these different departments and basically making labels of everything that was in the box and putting it on the outside of the box and then putting it back on the shelf. Okay. And we had these handheld little scanners that were computerized. And actually, it's very similar to what you would find now. If you went to a Walmart, you saw them using them, it was the same thing. And um, we were talking about ghosts, and my friend was like, "Oh, this place isn't haunted." And I kind of laughed and I said, "I wouldn't make fun of it." I said, "This place is legit haunted. There's something here." And she goes, "Oh no, you're just messing with me, trying to get me scared." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Don't you come crying to me then when the spirit decides it wants to do something to you to prove that it's here." And I kid you not, it wasn't even 5 minutes later, my friend goes, "Did you take my scanner?" And I said, "No, I didn't take your scanner. This one's mine. Has my name at the top, in the system." And she's like, "Well, what did I do with mine?" I said, "Oh, great. Did you put it in one of your boxes and then close it up?" She goes, "No. How would I have scanned the stuff on the outside?" I said, "I don't know. Like, stupider things have happened or whatever." And I said, "Well, did you go down one of the other aisles behind us?" I mean, there's aisles and aisles of boxes of stuff. And she goes, "Well, I don't no, I was standing here the whole time." And I said, "Are you sure you didn't go down one of those aisles?" She goes, "No, I was standing here the whole time." And I said, "Okay." And I laughed and I said, "Wouldn't it be funny if the ghost moved it?" And she's like, "Oh, you need to stop it with the ghost thing." And I said, "I'm just saying, wouldn't it be funny?" And she goes, "Well, now I'm going to have to open up all these last 4 or 5 boxes that I've been going through to try to find it." And I said, "Okay." I said, for poops and giggles, I'm just going to go down these other aisles and just see if maybe you did go down one of the aisles for something and laid it down. And she's like, "I'm telling you I didn't. It was only 5-10 minutes ago." And I'm like, "Okay." And something told me to look under about three aisles over and underneath these risers that we put all these boxes on. And in the very center, now these risers are, I'm very short. I'm only 5'4". And my friend, she was taller than me, but not by much. So maybe 5'7" at the most. She was very tiny. And so these risers, her and I both could have laid this way across the riser and made it a bed. Whereas other tall people, if they were to lay across it, their feet would be hanging off or something. But it's wide enough. In the center, underneath all of those, was a scanner.
Hmm.
And I began laughing and I said, "Is this your scanner over here?" And she goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "There's a scanner in the center of this riser." And she goes, oh, you better knock it off. You better quit messing with me. And I said, I didn't put it there. I said, something just kind of told me to go and look over here. And so we used a long pole to push it out.
Mhm.
And we pulled it out. It was her scanner.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And there were a couple other things. Like, I think it took a tape gun once of hers when, once again, we were talking about spirits. And she was kind of like, freaking out. And I don't remember exactly. It was somewhere along the lines of like it moved it again and put it somewhere else. But I found that really funny. Then later in years, I was working in South Dakota at a disability house where adults that have disabilities go and live. And myself and another person I was training on how to help take care of these people, we were waiting for this individual to come into their bedroom because they needed assistance. And this individual is very, they're very mobile and so, they needed to do a lot of things on their own. So, which is why we were like, all right, we'll meet you in your bedroom. You just come in there when you're ready. We're there for you. So her and I were standing there and we're leaning across. Now the room's really long and there's 2 beds in there because it's two gentlemen that lived in there. And the beds are always made because we make them every morning. And this was like getting close to nighttime. And we had only the lights on in the section that we were going to need, okay? The other lights in the room were off. And we were leaning against one of the dressers and we were chatting and, kind of yelling out the door, hey, we're ready for you. Whenever you're ready, please come in, kind of one of those things, just a reminder. And we both were just dead staring at the one bed. And we didn't see what it was, but we saw an imprint land on the bed, like something sat down and then stood up and moved the bedspread.
So it wasn't like a shadow or anything. It was like you literally just saw the
Nope.
imprint.
It literally was like you could see something indent into the bed. Now, these are special hospital beds. Keep that in mind. Because a lot of the patient, or I should say clients that we worked with had, issues with their backs and legs and that kind of thing. So, like, they had special hospital beds. And you could see an imprint of a rear end in the bed. And I'm just standing there like this. And I'm not even looking at my friend. And all of a sudden, we saw it lift up. And the bedspread smoothed out again. I mean, not completely, but it smoothed out more than it did. And the gal standing next to me goes, nope. And I said, oh, you saw that too, huh? And I laughed and she's like, yeah, nope, I'm not working at this house. I don't work with something like that. And I just laughed and I said, honey, I'm sorry to break it to you, but probably most of these houses will have something like that in there. And I just said, hello, just because it probably was another client that unfortunately just never left.
Real quick, before you go on, I just want to let you know that nobody's in the chat and says, hi, guys. How's it going?
Oh, hey.
Hello.
No, so those are the main ones. I mean, I'm sure I've had other paranormal encounters at different jobs, but those are the main things that I remember.
You talking about Walmart made me remember my time in Arizona working at Walmart. And ironically, I used to do inventory in the back. I was the, what did
That's
they, what
that's
was,
what I
I
did,
can't
yeah.
remember what the title for was, like ICS or something like that. It was inventory.
Yeah,
It was something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, but I did the overnight and there was always weird stuff going on in that back storage room.
Yep. Yep, definitely.
Mhm.
I don't know how many times in the past, when I would walk into the store after I quit working there, and I would go late at night and I would walk down an aisle, and especially aisles that had like stuffed animals or pillows. If I walk down one of those aisles, even to get to a connecting aisle, um, a few feet behind me, something will just randomly fall off a shelf.
And speaking of, remember I mentioned that I worked at the electronics recycling place. Sometimes we would have tablets and or laptops just fall off the shelves at random too in that little back corner. Because we had so it was all separated. We had laptops in one area and then tablets in another. Then we also had a place for desktops, like these big, huge server desktops. That stuff would fall off the shelf, and that stuff is heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So you always had to watch for falling servers because that stuff can hurt.
Oh yeah, something
Wow.
would push it off of a shelf or something like that. And I've even seen computers pop on their own without being plugged in because of paranormal activity too. I've seen that. TVs, I've seen it. Um, I know this isn't necessarily my mother's workplace, but when she was in the hospital for stomach surgery, there was a TV that was on and literally had a face looking at them through the television.
Oh no.
Yeah,
And
no, yeah, no.
and it was like just the eyes and part of the nose and mouth a little bit. And then she asked the nurse to come in and pull the plug. Pull the plug. Face is still there. The screen's all like grayish and kind of not staticky, but it had kind of like some of the waves and stuff in it. And the nurse is like, "Nope," and walks away. He's like, "No, and walks away from that. And he goes, "Yeah, I know this is creepy." And then leaves, and eventually it just shut itself off. And nothing ever happened again. But
Wow.
we thought it was kind of funny the way he reacted. I didn't see it. My mother just described it. But
Have you
I
ever
thought that
noticed how
was
like people like us laugh at this kind of stuff now? While everyone else is scared and freaking out, anytime we see paranormal, we're just like, "It's a Tuesday."
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I mean, that's legit how I felt, especially working in the client's home or bedroom. I just was like, "Yeah, hey, how's it going?"
Nobody says in chat. He's like, "Hey, sorry if you guys have already covered this because I've come in late," which is totally fine. He says, "But have you noticed that these hauntings seem to be increasing?" I'm seeing a lot more people taking videos at the workplaces with this stuff.
oh
Like,
yeah,
just
definitely.
hauntings in general, really.
I know that they use the term a lot that the veil is thinning, but it really is. People are becoming more awakened to and in tune to things that are outside of the norm.
People that I know that were hugely, hugely skeptical type people, like, no, this is not real, this isn't reality, are starting to be like, you know what? There actually might be something going on that we can't explain.
Yeah.
Notice that a lot of skeptics are turning towards this. I know, well, there's somebody in our immediate circle. I'm not going to mention them too much here, but is an extremely hardened skeptic, and everybody around this person is going, "You don't see this thing?" Nope. There's just some people that are still oblivious, but yeah, the paranormal activity has gone off the charts at the moment. 2020, I have to say, was probably the worst, for really negative paranormal activity. I mean, really just belligerent paranormal activity. But now, since then, since the end of the pandemic, yeah, it has revved up 10, 20, 30 fold as far as paranormal activity goes, and not just in workplaces, everywhere. I mean, I've even seen reports online, on Facebook and everything. People are thinking, yeah, their workplace is haunted. Even their convenience stores that are in, there's stories about that. I mean, it's all over the place right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
But
Well, I do have several videos to show and some Reddit stories. And one of the videos actually goes along with the Reddit story, so maybe we can go through that.
Yep, let's check it out.
All right. So, this particular Reddit story, if I can find it again, sorry. I do apologize. I did not get the handler's name for who wrote it, but they said, I work at a sporting goods store, and despite not knowing a lot about sports and all that jazz, I mainly work as a cashier. This night, we had just gotten through a wave of customers, and my manager came up to the front to help me check them all out. Just as the last person left, the doors had slid shut, and one of the Gatorade bottles from the display we have up at the front just decided to pitch forward and fall to the ground right in front of my manager and I. It falls in a it falls in a sort of heavy manner, lands on the lid, and the sides all the way, and then slides all the way to the aisles in front of our registers. At the time, we figured it was just the wind. And just as, so there's a video with this. So just as the video begins to end, you'll notice that I run to the doors to open them again so we can recreate it. But like I said, we just got through a rush, so the doors were opening and closing all night. Why would it just fall at just as the rush ended? So then they say that they figure that someone just bumped the display that wasn't in the video. And this person said that they shook the display, the bottles wobbled but would not fall. And they said there was also a lip on each shelf to keep the bottles from falling. The only way that they could recreate the bottles falling forward like it did in the video is by physically flipping the bottle by the lid off the shelf so it would fall purposely. And apparently it hasn't happened since. And now this person that works there tends to show this video that I'm going to show you every single time they hire someone new. So,
can you imagine that being part of your orientation? Like, okay, we're going to show you some paranormal video. Please don't freak out.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That would actually be really funny.
It would. I'd be like, I'm working at the right place now.
So apparently this happened in 2019. Right. So there the bottle goes, and it begins to roll, and they're like, oh, okay, that's weird, whatever. We're going to put it back. And that must be when they decide they're going to test it again. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know necessarily if I would consider that to be 100% paranormal, but it is really weird.
Yeah, because I mean, it looked like it just kind of shot from the shelf.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Yeah.
All right, so now we have a couple TikTok videos I'd like to share.
Working the night shift. So I used to work at Ross, Dress for Less, the worst place in the freaking world. Ross, don't sue me. But I worked the night shift. So we would get to work at like 3 o'clock in the morning. If it was like a late start day, maybe 4 o'clock. But at this point, I didn't drive. Thankfully though, my dad also had to be to work pretty early in the morning. So he would just drop me off on his way to work. This didn't fare like super well for me though, because there would be times that he would have to drop me off like 30 to 45 minutes before anyone else would get there. And this Ross was around like some other businesses, but nothing that anyone else would be showing up at this time for work. So this particular day, it's one of those times. He's dropping me off super early. I think it was literally like 40 minutes before anyone else showed up. So he drops me off at the light that's near the Ross. On the corner, I jump out of the car. I have to walk the rest of the way to work. Keep in mind, at 3 o'clock in the morning. So as I'm approaching the Ross, it's pretty dark because there's no lights on the inside until we get into the store. This shopping center doesn't even have any sort of like security or anything. So my plan was to find myself a bench that's right in front of the Ross and just sit there until somebody else got there. As I'm walking up to Ross, I start to see something, and I realize that it's somebody already sitting on the bench. So I'm thinking, thank God one of my coworkers is already here. When I get closer, it's a kid, and he's sitting there on the bench with his hood over his head. So I sort of instantly think, like, oh, he's probably homeless, like, he's probably just resting there, so let me not bother him. So I probably stay, like, a good, I'm gonna say, like, 50 feet away from him on the other side where the entrance is to, like, the Ross, because the bench was on closer to the next door over. So I'm just standing there, kind of just scrolling through my phone, but this was, like, pre-social media, so I didn't really have anything to do on it. I was just, like, scrolling through apps. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I feel this person, like, looking at me, and I could see them. Their hood is up and they're turned toward me. So the second I go to turn and look at them, they look away. And so I'm, like, thinking, like, oh, I probably just, like, caught them staring at me, whatever. So I go back to my phone. Then they do it again, and they're staring at me. And so I'm just trying not to, like, really pay that much attention, because I'm starting to get a little bit nervous, because, again, I'm out here by myself. But I'm starting to notice that every single time I look away from this person, they turn their attention toward me. Then one of the times that they're staring at me, I turn to go look at them, and they don't look away. Keep in mind, it is so dark though. I cannot make any features out about this person. I don't even know if it's like a boy or a girl. So when they're staring at me, I just kind of do the polite little like, but they do not reciprocate anything. They're just staring dead at me. So I'm starting to get scared, because by no means was this like a big person, but I'm a small guy myself. So like if I have to fight this person in the middle of the night while I'm just trying to go to work, I don't know what I'm going to do. I figure at this point, like, my manager is probably on her way to work anyways. So I go and I try to give her a call. She doesn't answer. So I leave a voicemail saying, hey, I don't really know what to do, but this person is sitting outside of the store and I feel super uncomfortable. What time are you going to get here? But obviously I couldn't do this in front of the person. So I walked away. By the time I came back, they were gone. Literally nowhere to be seen. And I was only gone for maybe 45 seconds. So then I have to just stand there for another 40 minutes while I wait for somebody else to show up. Thankfully, my manager, I think, came a little bit earlier, like maybe 10 minutes. So I was able to go into the store and it'd be fine. But you want to hear the craziest part? I tried to tell her to go and check the security footage. Like, 'cause I was like, I need you to see what this person looked like. Tell me why it just so happened to be that night there is no security footage. We looked and looked and looked. Our cameras just weren't recording, which is unlike anything I had ever seen, because those cameras were always recording. So many random things would happen in that parking lot, and we'd be like, oh my God, let's go watch the security footage. Somehow it just wasn't recording for that very specific event. So I don't know who I ran into that night, but so many people that I told this story to think it might have been the black-eyed children.
Mm-hmm. That would have been my guess too.
Phantom.
Okay, first of all, full disclosure, I did not watch this before I posted it. I'm like, oh, this sounds like it could be interesting. I didn't know he was going to mention the black-eyed children.
I absolutely hate the BEKs.
Yeah, black-eyed children. Yeah, that I believe they fall under vampire territory.
Yeah. So no, I did not. She's giving me that look. I did not do that on purpose. I swear. I didn't.
Oh man.
Oh, by the way,
I know what the theme of one of the next episodes is going to be. That
no, if we're gonna do, if we do
I'm
it,
gonna be.
Yeah, if we do an episode on that, Laura's not going to be present for that.
I'm not going to be present for it.
By the way, nobody had mentioned. He said two things while we were watching it. He pointed out the fact that between 3 and 4 a.m. that is the witching hour.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when,
very true.
And he had a good question. Like, why do these beings always tend to wear hoods?
I think it's because if they actually showed their physical appearance, you'd be terrified right off the bat. I mean, I'm not saying that people aren't terrified right away just even seeing them, but it's more of an unease. It's less of a...
Right. Well, and even an actual person sitting in the dark wearing a hood's a little unsettling too.
And a little less noticeable, especially at that hour.
It's camouflage. I feel. Yeah. Always when it comes to the black-eyed children, though, there's actually almost every instance that people have reported they're wearing a hoodie of some kind.
Yeah. Yeah, typically.
But don't worry, the next
Alrighty.
TikTok I did watch part of, so it doesn't make any mention of that.
So, that is pretty funny, though.
The one time I didn't preview it before I posted, I'm like, oh, this one looks interesting. It happens to mention that.
When I started listening and they said it was a kid, immediately, I don't know if I rolled my eyes or what, but I know I was thinking
hoodie, I
like,
knew black-eyed children. I was just kind of okay. This has got to be this.
anyway,
yeah, and that's I want to point out too. I find it really interesting that at that moment the cameras weren't recording. I thought he was going to say they checked the footage and he was the only one there. I wasn't expecting it just didn't record.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit. Yeah. Okay. You guys can all see, correct?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay.
Se escucha que grita. Creo que es de acá. Oiga, hay veces que se oyen las sillas de ruedas que caminan, que hablan.
So you can hear somebody in the background. Oh, what? Wait. There's a person there in the corner.
Whoa.
¿Qué es eso? Ay,
And did you see the person standing in the background?
I didn't. You want to rewind that real quick because I didn't see
Yes.
that.
Okay. Look in the corner, like right away when she
hay veces
looks
que se
in,
oyen
not
las sillas de
here,
ruedas
but when she looks into that
que
room.
caminan, que hablan.
It's the opposite side of where that right there. Do you see? They're standing there looking down.
Frase,
Oh yeah.
ay, ¿qué es eso? Ay,
Yeah, I'd be out of
ahora
there
sí me
too.
eco.
Yeah, I'm gonna play it one more time.
Como si hablaran. Es nadie. Se escucha que grita.
And if anyone speaks Spanish,
De acá.
or if this isn't Spanish, whatever it is that she's speaking, and
veces
can
que se
tell
oyen
us
las
what
sillas
she's
de
saying,
ruedas
please let us
que
know.
caminan, que hablan.
So, it sounds like it is Spanish.
It does
Yeah.
sound like Spanish. Yeah, see, it looks like they're wearing a hat.
Ay, ¿qué es eso?
See, at first I thought maybe that was like a vase or something. That did.
Ahora sí me eco.
No, it definitely. Sorry, I'm gonna play it one more time and pause it.
Yeah, I'd be curious because I thought
Hay
maybe it was
veces
a
que se oyen
vase
las
or
sillas de
something.
ruedas que caminan, que
I
hablan.
mean, maybe it's pareidolia.
You're talking about the white, like right there, right?
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. I guess I thought that was like a vase or of some kind. I don't know because I think it moved.
Oh no, you're right. I think it is a vase. Okay. Ah, okay. No, I think you're right. Because now when I see it, I see that's a silver vase and those are flowers.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. But I mean, I see
Okay,
where like
okay.
the way they move the camera, I can see where it can kind of look like someone
This
standing.
looks like a hat and this looks like a white shirt and like they're wearing something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
A little bit, yeah.
But
That's
and
still creepy
of course,
with the-
this also looks like a hospital, maybe.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
¿Qué es eso? Ay, ahora sí me eco.
Or a nursing home or something.
Oh yeah, it could be a nursing home.
Yeah, nursing homes.
Nursing
right
homes
with
and hospitals are like probably like the two biggest like places you could probably go work that's going to be haunted.
it. Yeah, anything
So-
medical usually. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of believe it probably does pertain to it, but when I was very young, anytime I went into a hospital, I would develop a migraine so bad that I would physically have to be sick before I felt better. And often I would
Mhm.
become sick.
Oh yeah, in hospitals, usually the sick and dying, they don't mean to do this, but they kind of vampire energies off of people, and people get visibly sick. That's why I always tell people to ward their energies, visualize a shield around them when they're going into a hospital or anything medical, because you're going to get drained going into a hospital, and the people don't mean to do it. Of course, there's probably some kind of entities in there as well. Of course there is, but the but the people that are dying do it anyway. It's kind of a normal process. The body's trying to grab onto anything, and they're pulling in energy from people around them.
Yeah. Nobody in chat says, imagine working in a funeral home.
Oh, I can only imagine. There's actually on TikTok, I don't remember the handler's name.
She glitched again. We'll give her a minute.
Has a permanently surprised look on her face.
I mean, it's pretty legit.
Mm-hmm.
She's gonna, when it catches up, she's gonna look pretty annoyed. Yep.
Sorry about that, guys. It's always when I'm talking too. It's almost like it really want me to talk. Yeah, so there's this mother and son that own a funeral home, and I'm not sure where it's located or anything, but they film themselves often after they've, completed doing what they need to the bodies and cleaning stuff up. And that's often, it's right before they get ready to leave when they're trying to put away tools and everything that they'll hear things. And it's just those two that are in the building.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I do have a couple other videos. Otherwise, I do have 2 Reddit stories. I know that we're getting here short on time. So, what would you like for me to do?
I'm thinking videos.
Yeah, we can check out the videos.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there still might be a little time for the Reddit story. We'll see.
Maybe.
Because if we go over a little bit, I think that's okay.
Was captured by security cameras inside a company building. It shows an employee working his night shift, but as he got up to take a short break, the office chairs suddenly started moving on their own. This strange incident strongly suggests that the place
I'd be
might
noticing
be haunted.
that.
The other worker in the background
Yeah,
didn't think
that guy's
twice.
like,
He
"No."
ran out immediately. This footage was captured by security.
He's like,
That's funny. I'm sorry. That is funny if you ask me.
It's always funny when somebody doesn't expect it and just take it. Just
I can't remember the name of it, but that reminds me of this little indie game I played. Where like the whole thing is like you're in an office in the middle of the night, and so you have to like do these small little objectives by walking through this office area, and the more objectives you're doing, the longer you're there during the night, more and more weird things happen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like
that actually sounds like a lot of fun.
It was fun. Like there comes a point where you walk into like a computer room and all the screens turn on and start buzzing, and then chairs start flying. I can't remember what it was called. I'll see if I can find it again.
I think, what's really weird is I think I would be okay with like chairs moving and things moving off desks. But I think if I walked into an office and all the computer screens all of a sudden came on and started doing something, I'd be like, nope, I'm not playing this game. There's something about electronics and coming on that I'm just like, ooh, I feel like you could talk to me that way, and I don't know if I want to talk with you. Like, you can move chairs. I don't care about that.
Unless
I'll
they
watch
take the
that.
chair and hurl it, then you have a
Well, yeah.
But we had at Valentino's, and I worked the dish room most of the time, and things every now and again things would fly off the shelves, especially the one closer to the door in the refrigerator. Things would just come flying off the shelf. Eventually, I just emptied that entire thing off because it was stuff nobody needed. I just went and stored it, and things would constantly be flying off. There's things that wouldn't move easily. They were heavy things, like cast iron, like things to lids to stuff.
Oh man!
And I hear thud, and things would fly off.
So nobody said something in chat that kind of just reminded me of something. He said, I think also those old heritage or old properties that have been converted into bars and pubs and restaurants are hotspots. I'm glad he brought that up. It's ironic he brought that up because when we did our little Easter dinner next door, I was sitting with my wife's mom's boyfriend who lives over there. We were watching like a top 10 paranormal videos countdown thing.
Oh, fun!
And they were talking about this old bar in Illinois that at one point Al Capone was
Irish
part of.
Legend.
Yeah, and so these guys had went in and were doing like a spirit box session and were supposedly contacting these old mobsters and out right. And so
I don't know if I would.
Right, but yeah, it's interesting how he had said that in chat, and I'm like, oh yeah, I just watched something like that literally a couple hours ago on that.
That's interesting because when I did a lot of the stuff with Sage, that's my paranormal group. Me and a friend of ours named Dave Pappas and my father actually went and ate at the Irish Legend. I popped on the phone as an EVP recorder while we were sitting there, and what I was picking up on there, and what I was getting, for psychic communication and asking questions on the phone, you can actually hear the responses on that on the At the Lifting Presents YouTube. I re-uploaded that after just recently too onto that YouTube channel. So the fact that you brought that up, Phantom's fairly interesting. We went and ate there, and we went to Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, got EVPs and such over there, and Ghost Box session over there. So that whole area where Capone is extremely ripe with activity, and the Irish Legend where he stayed. There, yeah, there's a lot of ghosts of mobsters in that particular.
We're definitely gonna have to do an episode about Bachelor Grove. I was there myself.
That sounds interesting. I've never been there personally, but I'm definitely curious to know more about it. Before we get into that next video, real quick, nobody has a question for you, Chris. He says, how do you handle or protect yourself in these situations because you still got to finish your work?
Oh, yeah. What I do is I just visualize myself being grounded, like I have tree roots going through to the earth, and I surround myself in a shield or a suit of armor while I'm doing things like that, so I don't get entangled with whatever's around. Nowadays, I also take care of the problem. If I see there's an actual problem, I can usually take care of it as long as it's I can do it fairly quickly. Then not so much. But nowadays, I just usually clear the space. But in lieu of being able to do that, I'm saying just visualize a barrier around you of some kind. You can make up a barrier. You can make up something, just as long as it has that intention to it.
Good deal. All right, yeah, let's check out that next video.
Okay. You guys can see it there.
Yep, I can see it.
Take a look at this terrifying footage. An employee at the company had asked his supervisor why he wasn't notified that there was a new employee. As you see in the security footage, he's actually speaking to somebody he thinks is there, but there's nobody there and there's no new employee. Take a look at this footage. It's spooky.
Okay, watch this, y'all. This man, he called his boss asking him, why didn't y'all tell me they had a new employee, right? He constantly looking back, right? He talking to somebody, right? Just watch, this is creepy. Look, having a whole conversation with somebody, right? Saying that somebody came and he dapping that person off and everything. Now see, look, y'all see when he dapped him off, look what happened. He dapped him off. You see that shadow?
Whoa,
and then the shadow goes over here and he
wow.
pulling the chair out for him. He swore to God he sat there and had a whole conversation with this person. He moved over talking to him and everything. Y'all better protect yourselves. Whatever that was took advantage of him.
That's kind of like the story you were just talking about earlier, Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could probably see full body. He was more likely interacting with a full form, and the camera only caught the shadow.
Yeah. Oh, nobody does say thank you for the answer on that, by the way, Chris.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah. We probably have time for that Reddit story if you want to do it.
Sure. All right. So, this one is written by Tomatoes in Radio Wire, and the title of it is "So It Turns Out My Job is Super Haunted." It says, I started working overnights at a shelter a little over a year ago, and a lovely old woman had decided to put it in her last will and testament that upon her death, her home would be donated to the nonprofit that I work for and used as a shelter for abused and homeless women. Super kind of her. When I first started, I'd get the distinct feeling that I was being watched in the office, but I tried to write it off as my imagination. I'm working by myself at night in a dark house, and it's only natural to get a little spooked. Understand that? After a while, when I'd be locking up the house for the night, I began hearing low voices having hushed conversations in one of the common spaces adjacent to the kitchen. I kept assuming it was one of the residents using the room to get some privacy so they could talk quietly on the phone. But the second I'd walk in to say the room or into said room and flip the lights on, nobody was there, and the whispering would stop abruptly. Super weird. Then the side door, located in the same room, started opening on its own. This was kind of a big deal. We needed to be secure, and especially at night, and we can't have a door into a DV shelter just standing wide open, so any weirdo can waltz right in. I told the residents that they gotta close the door after coming back in from smoking at night, but they all seemed confused and insistent that it wasn't them. I had to start patrolling the house more frequently in an effort to catch whoever was doing it. I'd go down every few hours to check the door and ensure nobody was up and walking around. But when I'd come down in the morning, I'd always find it wide open yet again. After we had a security system installed, the alarm kept getting set off over and over by the side door being open at night. I'd rush downstairs to confront whoever had opened it, and nobody was there every time. When I finally mentioned this stuff to one of my coworkers, her eyes went wide. It turns out, during a few of her weekend afternoon shifts, when all the residents were out for the day, she started hearing footsteps in the third floor bedrooms. When she'd go upstairs to investigate, she started to hear voices talking from inside one of the rooms behind the closed door. She'd assume, oh, somebody probably forgot to turn off their TV before heading out, or whatever. But upon opening the door, she'd find the room empty and the TV turned off. I felt my blood run cold. So I told yet another coworker, someone who had worked there far longer than me, what this girl and I had experienced. She just said nonchalantly, oh, sure, we have a ghost. Her name is Mary. It's the old lady who used to live here. She's harmless. The worst she does is slam the doors when people make too much noise. But she's overall a very nice ghost. It turns out the fact that this job is haunted is just common knowledge and nobody gives a shit. They did say edit. Oh, I forgot to mention. I used that reality ripple filter from TikTok to see if it would detect anything in the office. I stood there for a while, but nothing was showing up. Tested the filter to make sure it was working correctly, and it was all good. And there was nothing to detect, I guess. So, just as I was about to give up, I decided to tentatively call out, "Hey, Mary, are you there?" And immediately, a human-sized shape thing appeared on the screen a few feet in front of me. It stood there for about 10 seconds and then vanished. I was in shock, and I couldn't believe that worked.
That's insane.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Reddit's kind of full of good stories like that.
Yeah, I haven't used Reddit very much. Now I'm going to have to start doing that. I started posting a couple of our lifting episodes and such on there. I'm going to have to start using Reddit more.
Yeah,
definitely.
And you know what? I think it'd be fun to do more Reddit stories on these streams because those can get pretty entertaining.
Yeah, we can do just a solid thing of Reddit stories, maybe a couple videos, and just call the stream Reddit stories or something like that.
Yeah, we could do something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Another thing, I mean, I know that you had asked Chris for his input on how to protect himself or yourself from spirits in the workplace and that. I feel like this works for anywhere that you feel unsafe or that there's something paranormal there. I just imagine I'm in a ball of glowing gold sparkling light, and it just keeps expanding over and over until it's expanded into the whole entire room. Sometimes I feel like I need to expand it throughout the whole entire building that I'm at. And usually once I do that, I do feel a lot better. So maybe it's just something you need to do to try. It's pretty simple to do, pretty easy to visualize.
I think it's all about just letting these entities know that they're not allowed to mess with you.
Yeah.
You know, it's
and
that,
holding your ground, like
that,
basically, this is your sovereign space.
Right. That
well,
intent that you put out.
I know that a lot of people believe in demons and bad things, and you know, here I sit here, and I really don't like to talk about.
Oh, and it happened again. All right, we'll give it a minute. Sorry, everyone. Her stream's been glitching off and on. Every time she goes into something.
Mm.
Swear on my life.
It ended in about. Yeah.
But every time, but basically, like, it's not that I think that these things are super evil. I mean, I don't get good vibes from them. However, honestly, the reason I don't like to talk about them is because, just like spirits, if you think about these kind of things and talk about them a lot, you're bringing it to you. Just like the Winnebago. I don't say the actual word because I have been told over and over again from people that live in the Appalachian Mountains that you could easily bring it to yourself while talking about it and thinking about it.
Treat it like Voldemort, basically. Thou shall not be named.
And I know how silly that kind of sounds. However, I don't know. I really feel very strongly about that, especially with the black-eyed kids. And that's the last you'll hear me talk about them for a while now. But as far as spirits go, I guess one of the things that always, for me, makes things less scary is I just tell myself they're a human without a body. How would I treat a stranger? You know, and that's I go from there. I don't know.
I've noticed that on this property, yeah, we've had ghosts over the years, but since 2020, I probably haven't treated them the nicest because the fact there's been so many of them and they've caused havoc at times. I was at first, but I noticed that it seems that I know this seems counterintuitive, but the nicer I was to them, the more of them would be here. So it was like, so I had to kind of take a neutral stance.
You definitely have to have boundaries with spirits for sure.
Well, they mark your house and then they just come around constantly,
right?
Like a homeless person.
It kind of does seem like spirits really just don't understand boundaries. It's like they forgot what boundaries were, and they'll just do whatever they want to do if you let them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them are desperate. They realize, oh, you can sense me, or you can talk to me, or you can feel me, or whatever the case may be, and it gets them excited. I know I would be excited if it had been years, and I maybe even if I don't even realize I'm dead, but like no one else acknowledges me, and all of a sudden someone does. How exciting is that?
That's true. That's true. By the way, nobody does say thanks, Heap, Lady Laura, also for your explanation.
You're welcome. I like simple things, so
yeah, simple things like that. Yeah, and also, we've had out in my workshop, which is the garage. There's a ghost of an old guy that's out there every now and again that I can hear him in my head telling me to get out of his workshop. I'm like, it's not yours anymore. So I've tried to remove him a number of times, but this is one of those where you have to figure the history out first before you can excommunicate them from the house. So, but I noticed he was like from the 80s or early 90s, something like that.
There are those spirits, that are out there that are just stubborn as heck, and they don't want to believe anything different than what their own reality is.
Nobody mentions too. He's like, do you think they're kind of desperate because they're stuck here? Which that could also play a factor, I think.
There's some factor there,
yeah, but I really do think it it in my mind, it would make more sense that they're more excited the fact that somebody all of a sudden acknowledges them. And because if you think about it, let's say each one of us goes into and moves into an apartment that's haunted. Now, let's say I'm a huge skeptic and I don't believe in any of this stuff. And my stuff keeps falling off shelves and paintings are getting knocked off the walls, whatever. I'm gonna be like, oh, well, it's bad drywall. Oh, well, the floor's all messed up, so the shelf is crooked, so things don't stay on it. I'm gonna find everything under my power to negate what is most likely paranormal.
Yeah.
So I'm not giving that spirit acknowledgement that I see what's going on.
Right. And it could even be a situation where plain as day, there's no logical explanation, but the usual skeptics is going to be like, oh, there's got to be, they always default to there's an explanation. I just don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say Phantom moves into this apartment, sees the same stuff happen, and is like, oh, hey, yeah, I acknowledge that you're here. I hope we can live peacefully together. Please stop knocking my stuff over. And in another apartment that's also haunted, that has the same things, that Chris moves into, except Chris, even though he believes in all of it, he just ignores it. Doesn't acknowledge it, nothing. Goes on with his everyday thing, doesn't try to negate it, nothing. Now you tell me which one, if you were that spirit that was knocking that over, is going to be more excited to talk to.
The one that
probably going to be the one that acknowledged that you were there.
Right. And then who's to say that spirit's not going to go over to that other place and go, hey, this person actually is talking to me. Well, you should come on over. And then the next thing you know, you got 2, 3, 4 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
After a while, yeah, I've had that happen.
And so personally, I guess in all the haunted locations that I've ever lived in, for me, now keep this in mind, this is my own opinion totally, and I understand that everybody has different experiences, but for me to acknowledge them and say, hello, yes, glad that you're living here too. I hope we can be friends. I hope we can coincide together perfectly. Can you please? And then I set boundaries, and I set hard boundaries. One of them is you're not allowed in my bedroom when I'm in there for any reason. Number 2, you're not allowed to purposely scare me. You can knock something over and that might scare me, in the moment, might startle me. But I know that that wasn't your real intent. Your real intent was to just, hey, notice this. And so for me, that has always kind of worked. Now, keep in mind, once again, I realize that doesn't always work for everybody. Everyone has different things that happen. If they were a particularly stubborn spirit, like the one, Chris, that you have, I probably would just try to keep bringing up, hey, we're going to coincide together. Like, you do your thing, I'm going to do my thing. But you stay over there.
Well, it's kind of like our house. I know we have spirits here. I know that for a fact. But we've also acknowledged their existence, and so they don't really do stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with him, he only bugs me inside of the workshop. He doesn't leave the confines of the workshop. Good. And it's kind of like in Beetlejuice, where they didn't go on beyond the confines of the house kind of thing. It's like that. I've noticed in some cases, I think he died in there, and he doesn't like the fact that the other person's stuff is in there too, the owner of the house. So the fact that I'm there, and actually I make like orgone pieces, I have all the stones and crystals stored away in there. He oh my God, is he mad at that? He does not like that. I've tried to coexist with him. He is just a dick. And I've tried. I was like, fine, be a dick. Just do it on your own time.
Yeah.
I'm going to work out here, and then you break anything, I'm going to be pissed. So,
yeah, that's probably what I'd be like too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If I can't remove them, I'm just going to say, just stay in the corner and don't bother me. That's really how it is.
I wanted to make a joke, but I don't think I'm going to make it.
Oh.
I was going to make a joke, but I don't know if I should.
An inappropriate joke.
An inappropriate joke.
Okay.
I'm going to say, you get in the cuck chair right now.
No, that's great.
Oh, boy. Anyway. All right. Well, that's all I have at the moment. So.
Yeah, that's okay. We got a Tammy 4000 by the way in chat. Welcome to the stream, by the way. She said she was asking the question, saging the house wouldn't get him to leave. I think she was probably asking you, Chris.
I don't think it always does.
It doesn't always work.
I think when it comes to saging, isn't it usually like it might like calm them down a little bit, but not always necessarily get rid of them.
It will some of them, and also the energies themselves, like if there's residual junk, yes, but not all ghosts. Sometimes you have to actually energetically push them out and move them across to the other side. With sage, it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't have anything else unless you guys got anything.
Nope. Next weekend is my birthday weekend. Whoop whoop. So I'm gonna be taking over the stream, and we are gonna talk about Bashar.
Yeah, I don't really know much about the topic, so I'm definitely interested to hear what you have to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, I know about Bashar. We haven't met him at any of the conferences yet, but yeah, we've seen a couple of his things.
Right on. Well, thank you everyone for coming to the stream. Even if you showed up late, that's okay. You can watch the whole stream over, and if you have anything else you want to add, just go ahead and leave it in the comment, and we'll read that.
We also have an email. Do you want to give the email out and people can send us their stories or requests for
we do
future shows?
I do have the email address listed on the YouTube channel. If you click on the email button, it will show email. So yeah, if you have any stories or anything you guys want to share, any videos you'd like us to take a look at, yeah, you can send to the email there. It's just trofoldparanormal@gmail.com.
Definitely.
All right. Well, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Easter, and everyone have a good one.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.